Okay, and here we are, the video that I know everybody's been waiting for. This is the one that is going to focus on your partner's communication style. Now, I've said over and over again that the only person you have control over changing is yourself. And for that reason, I don't want you to put too much of your focus on your partner, because our tendency is always to try to blame other people for issues. And even if that's not true, you're playing a role in your interaction, in their communication style, in your communication style. And I want you to focus on figuring that out. So while, of course, we are going to talk about your partner, we're still looking at what you need to do, not them, because you can't change anything that they do. You can influence them, of course, and that's probably the best that we can hope for in this situation. But the only person that you are capable of changing is yourself. This may be the hardest video of all for you to accept, because I know that if you could just get your partner to change that one thing, everything would be great. But you and your partner are likely locked into a predictable pattern or set of rules for your communication. And if you do change, you are going to rewrite those rules. And understand that this can create confusion and chaos. Change is always accompanied by some level of chaos, even if it's change that we want and that we seek out. We all respond differently to confusion and chaos. They are uncomfortable feelings. They are feelings that invoke fear. And sometimes what happens when we feel fear, we give in to the primal brain. So let's start with an aggressive communicator. I don't know your situation. As I've already said, physical aggression is never okay. And if your partner is overly verbally aggressive, it might not be safe for you to perceive. Only you can determine if you can shift some of the boundaries with an aggressive communicator. If you cannot do it on your own, then you need to get help to do that. First off, remember, we've discussed what's behind this communication style. The aggressive communicator may have no awareness of their fear, and they might not really appreciate that feedback from you. So you might have to learn how to address it more subtly. If you want to share something with an aggressive communicator, you have to process that. Where do you think it will jangle them? How will it hit their attachment bond fears? It's not your responsibility to mind read your partner, but you can do what you can to assure successful communication. I do believe that is a responsibility that we all hold, to make sure that our communications go the way that we want them to. So let's use my going to the ball game example that I used in a previous video. So I don't want to go to the ball game with my husband, but he's known to become really upset when I disagree or push back like that. So I could approach my husband and try to address what I feel like his insecurity is going to be right away. So right up front, I'm going to give the buffer. I call it a buffer. This is the "let me reassure you" statement. Hey, I really want to spend some time with you this weekend. It's always good to have a date. We usually have so much fun. And then the assertion comes, and that statement looks like, I'm just really not sure I want to go to this ball game, though. I feel like I'd be wasting your money using a ticket because I'm not really going to enjoy it. And then I'm going to present a negotiation. I'll say, what if Billy Bob went to the game with you, and I'll get a sitter for the kids on Sunday, and we could go out then. Maybe we could go play goofy golf and then get some ice cream. That way, you've answered his need for connection and togetherness and an activity for the two of you, and you've softened the blow. You've told him, I really love to spend time with you, but I don't really want to do that. And then you negotiate what you hope will be an acceptable alternative. So I've given the buffer statement, the assertion, and then I'm offering a negotiation. So notice that I didn't give any judgment to his version of the outing. I'm not saying, I'd hate that, or I don't want to go anywhere with you. Even in my negotiation, I'm not saying that my outing is better than his. Now, there's no guarantees about how your partner is going to respond to that. Remember, you can't control your partner's behavior. So you cannot control how they are going to respond to this. If your communication is not successful, again, failure gives you fodder. So try to determine where you could have impacted it maybe in a more positive direction. Take that information and analyze it and try to come up with a better approach. I do have a worksheet for increasing understanding, which I'll attach here, and you can use it as a template to facilitate communication. When a lot of emotion is involved, as a rule of thumb, you need to slow things down. You don't want to let your emotions run the show. And sometimes writing out your thoughts beforehand, that's a perfect way to slow that process down. Dealing with an aggressive communicator takes some restraint for sure. A person who gets real spun up with emotion may need a time to cool off, to get control of themselves. So I urge you to set some boundaries with your partner and assure them that you'd love to talk about things. You're not going to vacate the conversation and never come back to it, but only if they're not yelling, etc. This is a boundary that you have to set with your partner. And I usually suggest that you do that when things are really calm between the two of you. Let them know that you understand them getting so upset, but it's really hard to talk when they're that upset. So when it happens, you're going to go into another room, let them cool off. It doesn't mean that you don't want to hear their concerns. It just means that you feel that you need to wait until things calm down, and you do. So if your partner is a really passive communicator, there's a real opportunity for you to determine if you're running over them. You know, sometimes your partner's passive in response to your aggression. Is that the case? Well, there's another change for you to make. So even though your partner most likely learned that passive style of communication somewhere else, how are you perpetuating it? When your partner is passive, you spend a lot of time trying to guess or read their mind. That's no good. That puts you in a terrible position, and it puts your partner in a terrible position because they really don't stand a chance of getting their needs met. Remember, the same fears are present for the passive communicator. How can you reassure them? How can you address that insecurity? How can you pull back from making decisions and allow your partner's voice to kind of bloom and come out there? So let's go back to the same example. My husband bought tickets. I didn't want to go, and he's a passive communicator. This is what it might look like. The buffer is going to be, that was so sweet of you to want to spend the whole day with me. That makes me feel so special. I know you love football, and I love being with you. So right away in the buffer, I've gone to the heart of the matter. I've addressed what I feel like his actual fear or insecurity is. So I've addressed that. The assertion part of it, buffer, assertion, and negotiation. The assertion part of it is, I don't think I'd like that as much as Billy Bob would. Why don't you ask him instead? And then the negotiation part would be, y'all can hang out for that, and then afterwards you and I could go out to dinner together. Wouldn't that be a great day? Y'all could have a boys' day together, and then we could have a romantic night. So your partner is assured that you want to spend time with them, that you have that romance in mind, and that you want to have some one-on-one time with them, just not in the way that he actually presented. And again, remember, I might have a hurt partner anyway. I'm aware of that. I still could hurt his feelings as much as I try not to. I can respond to him when I see his hurt, and I can try to soothe him with reassurance because, first of all, I'm expecting it. I know that that hurt might look like anger, and I can go still to the heart of the matter and not deal with that because I know what's really underneath all of that. One important thing to remember, though, is that most passive communicators don't necessarily plan outings. They fear maybe picking the wrong thing. Their partner might not want to do what they want to do. So for that reason, when they do plan something, it's a cause for celebration. It's good to embrace it. So in my example, if my husband never planned anything for us and he brings some football tickets home, I'm going to fawn over that and act like it's the best thing since sliced bread. I am going to that football game. You must positively reinforce what you want repeated. So another strategy with a passive communicator is to kind of leave decisions to them. It puts a little bit of pressure on them. So do it in a supportive way. Don't tease them about making a decision or get upset with them. Don't say, we're not going anywhere until you make a decision. That kind of stuff is exactly what they're afraid of. So for example, you might be deciding where to go to dinner. And that might be a source of frustration between the two of you. And believe me, I've worked with a lot of couples that was a source of frustration. I don't get it, but okay. But the thing is, you want to address the fear. If you have a passive partner that's never good at making decisions like this, what are you going to do? The buffer is the best you can determine what that is. You are going to address the fear right up front. So it might look like, honey, I know you don't want me to be disappointed in your choice of a restaurant, but I'll be happy just to be with you. And don't say it if it's not true. So if you don't want to end up at McDonald's, say, I'll be happy just to be with you, unless you say McDonald's. I don't want to go there. We all have those places that we don't want to go. Sorry, McDonald's. But be honest in your response, but try to go right to the heart of the matter and address the fear. You can go a long way in getting your passive communicator to blossom and be more relaxed and more ready to contribute assertively to a situation. So this brings us to a passive aggressive communicator. This one can be the most difficult because passive aggressive communicator will disguise their behavior very well, or maybe not so well. In their mind, it's disguised very well. And in fact, most of the time, I think that they are unaware that they are doing it. I really think that it's important to draw attention to the behavior when you notice it in your partner. Not in a, you're so passive aggressive way, but in a, I noticed you said you didn't really care what movie we went to see, but you don't really seem very excited about going kind of way. It needs to be called out, and your partner needs to recognize that they don't have to address things in a maladaptive way, like being passive aggressive. Remember now, why do we adopt our communication styles? Because that's what makes us feel safe. So the passive aggressive communicator is not doing it because they want to be a jerk. They're doing it because it feels like the safest way to communicate. So how can you, as their partner, you want to help them communicate better, you have to find a way to help them feel safe, expressing anger, hurt, or fear directly versus in the passive-aggressive way that they've chosen. It's not helpful to criticize or get into a power struggle with a passive-aggressive communicator. That just doesn't help. But power struggles are not a win-win, they're a lose-lose. And we are after the win-win, right? In an effective way, because you want to improve your connection and your communication. But remember, they're not going to do that if they don't feel safe. So that part can be up to you. Encourage your partner to talk about the little things before they build up and be receptive to hearing those things. Sometimes that's not uncomfortable for us. When your partner does complain or blow up, pay attention and be responsive, not defensive about their concerns. This will demonstrate to them that they can discuss things with you and that it'll be a safe place for them to do that. You know, ultimately, it might be necessary for you to set some firm boundaries with passive-aggressive communicators, the same as it is with aggressive communicators. They need boundaries. They need to know what's acceptable and what's not. So you may decide to leave on time instead of waiting if they're running late. You may decide to ignore them if they're giving you the silent treatment. You may decide not to take the blame for something if you feel like your partner is behaving in a passive-aggressive manner. Make sure you're not being defensive, though. So a lot of people fear setting boundaries because they feel like boundaries are going to be a way of communicating, and they're right. So will setting boundaries be a big deal? Maybe. Will they cause a problem? Probably. Setting boundaries with grace and compassion is a skill also, and you'll have to develop that. But it may come down to that. So we're going to keep going with that same example, and imagine my husband being passive-aggressive in response to this situation. So same format, going to address it with a buffer first, and my buffer is going to be, hey, I love that you want to spend the day at the football game with me. It's always fun to go and do different stuff together. My assertion is, you know, I have my book club meeting on that day, though, and I'm hosting this month, so it's kind of a big deal. And then it's going to be the negotiation. So I really do want you to go and enjoy yourself. Maybe you could take Billy Bob, and then we could do something together on Sunday. So with a passive-aggressive communicator, you might get something back like, no, if you don't want to go, I'll just get rid of the tickets. The passive-aggressive communicator is kind of trying to let you know that they're upset without saying so. And if you know what's going on, you can dive on into that. Don't take ownership of their choices. If they went and got rid of the tickets, you say, oh, I wish you'd gone ahead and enjoyed it. Billy Bob would have liked it too. I know you're disappointed I didn't want to go. You know I love you and I hate to disappoint you. but I have things that I'm obligated to do that I enjoy also. Or on Sunday when you plan to go out together, he'll refuse or something will come up where he doesn't want to go or can't go. So again, he's letting you know he's upset without saying so directly. So your response might be, oh, you don't want to go? That's a bummer. I was looking forward to spending time with you today. I guess I can go myself, or is there something that you'd rather do? Or you could say, I think I'll work on this closet cleaning project then. Do you want to help me? Okay, I know that was brief. I feel like I could probably do hours and hours and hours on each one of these things that we've talked about here. But I hope that this gives you some ideas about how to interact with your partner if you identify with them as one style of communicator. Nothing about changing them, only about change to yourself. So proceed with caution, and remember, you are the only person that you can change. You are the only person that you control, and you are 100% in control of every behavior that you do. So in the next few videos, we are going to do some exercises and get you ready to make those changes, get you moving along that change continuum, and your communication style is going to be better